What's up YouTube, Capital G here talking Yang Zing's in this video, and I would like to say I was pleasantly surprised with Yang Zing's performance in a regional in Canada over the weekend. Yang Zing's has been a deck where I've tried to get on the bandwagon and people really just haven't played it. When I play against the deck, I always see, like flashes of greatness, like, man, this deck is resistant to destruction, even though it does miss the timing. Their synchro cards are really good. Why does nobody play this deck? A lot of it has to do with the fact that the deck is kind of slow. It can be maybe even a little boring to play at times, but Yang Zing are definitely, they're probably an undervalued deck, and I think that they'll be better this format than they were last format. Like, I didn't love a lot of their matchups last format. If you looked at Burning Abyss and Shadows, for instance, against Shadows, this is a deck that wants to synchro a lot, and if you do that, you're kind of playing into the hands of Shadows with the Shadow Fusion plays. Well, Shadows really isn't a deck anymore. If you were playing against Burning Abyss, I always thought that a Burning Abyss player would never, if they had Fire Lake, they would never really Fire Lake your monsters because they know they're going to float. They'll always Fire Lake your back row, which if you're playing a standard version of Yang Zing, which I've got both versions that topped, if you're playing a standardized version, that's going to be problematic because you're going to lose your Yang Zing creations, you're going to lose your skill drain, you're going to lose your Phoenix chains, all the cards that you really want. And I think they made an error on YGO organization. I'm almost certain that this is supposed to be another copy of Effect Veiler. I don't understand why the player would run one copy of Effect Veiler and then one copy of Extra Veiler. That doesn't make any sense. I'm pretty sure that they just made an error here. So there are two different versions of Yang Zing that you can kind of play. And if you've never actually seen the Zephra Turbo version, I've actually had it on I've had it on my channel before and dual commentary, and I'm not sure the play. There's a guy that I play on my streams. His name is Yuchi Hungry. He's played this deck a lot on Dueling Network. I'm talking 18+100 rating. And I don't want to say that this is him. During my next stream, I'm going to ask him personally if he was the one running this. But the deck it's really, really fast. And the Yang Zing's kind of obviously they're synchro fodder. But it's if you can't pendulum summon on your first turn, they get you through the early game because you generally know that you can set any one of these Yang Zings. Outside of him and being able to just forcibly put a synchro play on board, you know that you can set any one of these Yang Zings, and generally speaking, you're going to be able to get it. It's going to replace itself if it dies, if you put it face down. There aren't many ways of, unless your opponent just randomly goes into Abyss Dweller or something like that. And then you have the pendulum half, or the Zephra half. And this is all, to me, the pendulum cards in here are all kind of utility based. Obviously, Eccentric Archfiend is just it's one of the best pendulum cards that we have now. It's kind of spot removal for any type of situation against the pesky back row, like a Vanities that won't let you summon, or a problematic monster. Although this automatically does make this deck not really budget friendly, so that does kind of suck. But the Zephra cards, the two Zephra Tellarknights, they essentially kind of serve the same purpose. Maybe you have one of them in your scale and then you normal summon the other one. You can generally just pop your scale and blow up a card on your opponent's side of the field, and then you can complete your scale, and then you can end up pendulum summoning that back. Now the thing about this deck is it really wants to go off turn one, which is, you can see that in the Spell and Trap lineup. You see triple Chicken Game, you see triple Upstart Goblin, you see 3 terraforming. So it's if you have this, you're going to pretty much get to a field spell every single turn one. And with Oracle of the Zephra, which lets you search these cards, if you happen to pendulum summon this, then obviously you can search for Oracle of the Zephra too. So the spell lineup is really just so that you speed through your deck and you want to get a whole bunch of monsters, because this deck can actually, it can synchro 3-4 times in a turn, and your ideal field a lot of times is making it's almost like Infernity, where you want to kind of make a semi or very close to an uncrackable board. If you're not going second and you can't just kill your opponent, if you're going first, a lot of times you'll end with Void Ogre Dragon, maybe a Chow Fang, you know what I mean? And it's just going to be very difficult, especially if you throw in something like Herald of the Arclight. And a lot of times, since this card will almost certainly be in play every single turn one, because again, you can get it from here, or you can just draw it, or you can search it from Oracle of the Zephra, which, you got 3 terraformings, 3 chicken games, 3 upstarts, you're going to hit it. You can usually search out Zephra Divine Strike, which it gives you an Infernity barrier. So if you're playing against, let's just say anything, right? You've got a Herald of the Arclight on board. You've got a Void Ogre Dragon, which is right here. I don't know why I keep going to Star Eater. You've got a Void Ogre Dragon. You've got a Herald of the Arclight, and you've got a Divine Zephra Strike. Like, you basically have 3 negates. So, like, anything important your opponent tries to do with you, you're just gonna be like, no, just stop that. Now, the thing about this version, the Zephra version, is it's completely focused around the early game. Within the first 2 turns, you need to set up a board that is essentially going to just kill your opponent. Now, the great thing about this deck is I don't really think that it struggles against Cosmos at all. You know, the original or like more basic versions of Yang Zing, I think that they can have some problems with, you know, having to get rid of monsters without targeting, but not this version. Not only can this version make, you know, Ignister, which is, you know, that's instant removal for a spaceship because it doesn't target, but you can also make this. You can make Horus, and if your opponent only controls like a Forerunner or a Dart Destroyer, they have to give you that. Well, assuming that you make it using what's it called? Assuming that you use it with a Pendulum monster, which again, all the Zephra, Archphoenix Centric, like they're all Pendulum, so it's pretty easy to do. But this card actually doesn't target either. It just says your opponent gives you a monster, and again, if their only monster is that, then it's pretty damn easy. So this deck doesn't really have, like, it doesn't struggle to get rid of those non-targeting cards. Although I think if you were playing an entire deck full of it, if you were playing maybe something like Magispectors, it could be a little difficult. Like in the Magispector matchup, I think this deck would definitely want to go first. Although if you were playing this original build, I think that this deck would probably wreck Magispector simply because, you know, skill drain is a problem for that, for a deck like Magispectors. And even though you do have, you know, double Fiendish, double breakthrough skill in here, I just think that the grind would eventually get the Magispectors because they've only got so many spot removal cards, and Pendulum Summoning, like, basically, if you're Pendulum Summoning, eventually you're going to try and do something else. Like all of these pendulum based decks, like you know, Performances and Pals and Magispectors, like Pendulum is basically just a gateway to Xyz, to mass Xyz special summoning, and then the Xyz take care of, you know, each card or each problem that you put in front of them specifically. Like, oh, you've got a special summon monster, let me go on the 101 using these 2 cards. Oh, let me go into Castle to get rid of this back row. Well, that's when cards like Breakthrough Skill and Phoenix Chain come into play. Like, yeah, I might not be able to Phoenix Chain your Magispector Raccoon, but when you try and go into the extra deck and you try and do, you know, this Castel play or this 101 play or this Dark Rebellion Xyz, that's when those cards become live. I also think that well, and if he's running double Effect Veiler, then he has, like, you know, 6 different ways of just stopping like any type of Xyz card. I also think that Exiton Knight getting banned, like, it automatically helps all versions of Yang Zing, because like there used to be too many times where if you didn't have skill drain or if you didn't have a removal card, like Yang Zings would just get ultimately wrecked by a card like Exiton Knight, especially if the player was kind of smart and they made it so like the Yang Zings would miss timing. You just basically lose everything. But now it's like, you know, outside of Abyss Dweller, you really have to fight through all of these damn Yang Zings, and sitting here and attacking all of these cards knowing that they're, you know, anytime you kill a Yang Zing and you don't like stop it via Abyss Dweller or missing the timing, your opponent is getting one step closer to a Baxia summon or something like that. And like, you can't really outgrind Yang Zings because they have Yang Zing Path. They can get their resources back relatively easy. So let me know what you guys think. I think that Yang Zing, they're odd. The deck hasn't really changed that much. I just think that the decks around them, like, it's more conducive right now for Yang Zings to be like a better deck. Now maybe that's gonna change when like the new Monarchs come out. Maybe the deck will be too slow, but for like right now, for like the next, I guess, maybe couple of months until that happens, I feel like Yang Zing is like a real sleeper deck. And there's 2 versions that you can run. You can run a version that's like completely focused around the early game, or you can run your classic Yang Zing, which is completely grinded out. And this deck, it does have ways of getting rid of the spaceships, but it's like, it's not as efficient in my opinion, because you're kind of relying on mass field removal, the Dark Holes and the Regekis, and you want to get rid of the Forerunner and the Dark Destroyer that way. And then if your opponent gets a Farm Girl or something like that, like, you don't really care about that because you can just spin that back from Baxia. You know, the Baxia is always the follow-up play there. And I will say this, if you can make Bills in this deck against Cosmos, I'm not sure that they can actually beat you. You know, you see that Bills is like, it's a problem for a deck like Cosmos that wants to kind of kill everything in battle. And, you know, this deck does have dark monsters, it has dark tuners, so Bills is a card that you can actually summon. And I'm really trying to think of how they're going to get rid of it. Like, especially if you have Bills and Breakthrough Skill, their only option is like, pretty much 101 in Castel, and that's when you use like an effect veiler or a breakthrough skill, or even if you were running this version, like that would be what you use the Zephra Divine Strike for. You Zephra Divine Strike that, and then basically you just win. You just keep crashing with builds over and over and over again until they run out of like ways to stop attacks. So let me know what you guys think. Man, I might have to look into playing Yang Zings again. I actually have like 2 Yang Zing builds actually built on Dueling Network. Thank you guys for watching as always.